Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're diving into a powerful handbook that completely reimagines the classroom. We're going to distill its core message on how we can make education truly accessible for every single child.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the big foundational idea: every child's right to learn. Then we'll get into the philosophy of what an inclusive classroom actually is, explore the different needs students have, and look at how teachers can adapt their methods. Finally, we'll zoom out to see why this matters for all of us.
So first things first, we're starting with the principle that drives this whole approach, the universal promise of education. And this, right here, gets to the heart of it. This isn't just a hopeful sentiment, it's a fundamental right. This simple statement is the launchpad for completely rethinking our classrooms, moving away from a system that accidentally excludes and toward one that intentionally welcomes everyone.
So, what does inclusive actually mean? It's so much more than just putting a child with different needs in a regular classroom. It's a total shift in how we think.
And here's the core challenge this handbook points out. You see, for way too long, we've basically asked the child to adapt to a rigid, one-size-fits-all system. The inclusive philosophy just flips that script. It asks, how can the system adapt to the child? And you know, this isn't just an academic problem. When the system doesn't adapt, it creates very real social and emotional hurdles. A child who feels like they don't fit in is way more vulnerable to feeling isolated and, as this quote shows, even to bullying. Okay, now this is a really powerful idea from the handbook, a crucial distinction. An impairment is the physical condition, but a disability, that's created by the environment. So the problem isn't a child's hearing impairment. The problem is a classroom that doesn't use visual aids. This totally reframes the challenge from fixing the child to fixing the environment. So, if we're going to build a better, more flexible system, we first have to get a handle on the huge range of student needs that are out there. And this handbook covers a whole spectrum of needs. We're talking about everything from sensory challenges, like for kids with visual or hearing impairments, to cognitive differences like autism or other learning disabilities, all the way to physical disabilities that might affect how a student moves and interacts with their space. Okay, so how does all this philosophy actually work in a real classroom? Let's look at some practical, hands-on strategies for teachers. This is where the rubber meets the road. Just take a look at this. It's a pretty typical science lesson on the water cycle, right? But for a lot of kids, this page, with all its text, diagrams, and little sidebars, can be a huge barrier. It can create more confusion than clarity. And here is the solution. It's so simple and brilliant. By adapting the content, just pulling out the main idea, and turning it into a simple four-step flowchart, the whole concept becomes crystal clear. It's the exact same information, just presented in a much more brain-friendly way. Now, this whole adaptive approach isn't just for science. It can, and really should, be used across the entire curriculum. It's all about unlocking learning for every single student.
Abstract subjects like math are a perfect example. They often need some creative adaptations to make those invisible concepts feel real and understandable.
I mean, how do you explain a variable like x to someone who finds that idea confusing? Well, check this out. By linking x to Radha's age and x plus 1 to Sarita's age, the whole algebraic relationship is suddenly anchored in real-world logic that's super easy to get.
When it comes to science, the handbook points to one of the most powerful tools there is for inclusion: hands-on, multisensory learning. So instead of just reading about sound waves, imagine this. The students actually strike a tuning fork. They can feel the vibrations. They can see the ripples it makes in a bowl of water. This makes the lesson unforgettable and gives everyone a different way to understand the concept. Okay, and what about subjects like social studies or history, which can be super heavy with dense text, dates, and complicated events? For those, structure is absolutely everything. This is such a great example. You take a dense paragraph about some historical policy and transform it into a simple, clear table. It cuts down the language load and helps students instantly see the most important stuff: who did what, why they did it, and when. It's all about finding the signal in the noise. So, here's the crucial point, the main takeaway from all of this. These adaptations, this entire philosophy, it doesn't just make a better classroom for kids with special needs. It makes a better classroom for everybody.
Think about it. When a classroom is built to respect all kinds of abilities, it teaches these incredibly valuable lessons that go way beyond the textbook. Sure, it teaches empathy and collaboration, but it's deeper than that. When a so-called typical student sees a classmate use a visual aid to solve a math problem, it shows them a new way of thinking that they can use too. When they learn to communicate clearly with a friend who is hard of hearing, they become a better communicator for everyone. It helps build a whole generation of more flexible, creative, and adaptable problem solvers.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This isn't just a job for teachers, it's a mission for communities, for parents, for all of us. Because making sure that every single child has a place where they can learn, contribute, and grow, that's a goal we can all work towards. And in the process, we'll build a stronger, smarter, and much kinder society.